hate having to talk about it, but you have to talk about it.
Gotta talk about it.
You guys know, in New York, an elderly Asian woman was randomly beaten.
Yo, this was tough, man.
125 times
in
a unprovoked attack.
Dude.
This was at an ATM?
No, wasn't she going into her? She looked like she was
into a building. It looks like an ATM vestibule, though. That's what it kind of appears to be.
Because it looked like she was getting into an elevator or about to, and a dude opens up a door casually and just starts beating her from the back.
A big ass motherfucker too.
Big guy,
like socks her in the head on the side. She like falls down and fucking keeps on.
He calls her like a racial.
Called her an Asian bitch. He spat on her too. The woman was 67 years old.
Oh.
And the guy, 42-year-old dude with just a shitload of priors, of course.
Didn't he have like 40 something?
14 arrests, I think.
Oh, 40, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
14 arrests.
And that's all you have to really say, right?
Yeah, 14 previous arrests, half of them felonies.
What?
How?
Half of them felonies.
I thought they were supposed to be, well, maybe he's not in a 3-strike.
How the fuck is this
what
fool out
happened?
walking around and shit?
You have 14 of anything, dude. That's a lot.
Yeah, 14 speeding tickets, I'm looking at you weird.
Yeah, like what are you
kids,
doing?
I'm looking at you funny.
Yeah, anything.
And you're not Asian?
Yeah.
14 kids and you're not Mormon?
Yeah, what is up with
I mean, he was convicted of assault in 2011, released from prison 2013, 2.5 years into his 3+ year sentence. I mean, they just fucking never keep these people.
What kind of crimes were they?
It doesn't say, but
But that one was assault though.
yeah, it does show it's a violent crime. So
I want to believe in like rehabilitation, and I want to believe in second chances, and I want to believe that people can grow and learn depending on their age or whatever. I would love to see, and I'm not like all data science guy, but I'd like to see some data on anyone that has over, choose a number, 4 felonies. Anyone over 4 felonies that has ever been a positive piece of society.
Yeah. What about 14 chances?
That's what I'm saying. Like, no, but even less. That's what I'm saying. Like, even 2. How many people with 2 to 6 felonies come back and do something awesome for us?
I would love to know that, because in my brain, like, I feel like there's a point of you're not coming back from this. Like, like when you hear about the fucking, like the homeless dude that had a bucket of his own shit and dumped it on someone's head. Yeah. What's after that?
Yeah.
Like, what's the upside?
Because I also feel like, you know, when you're conditioned, like, you know, like an animal that bites a human, right? Once they taste human blood, they have to put them down.
Right.
I also feel like if you've done enough felonies on society or mankind, it's a condition where like you're reconditioned to go, this is okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Because like even for me, it's like there's so many layers where like, one, I'm not gonna hit a chick. I'm definitely not gonna hit an elder. So I'm not gonna hit an elder chick. So for someone to just like be at a point where it's that to him is like hitting another dude or hitting whatever a fucking.
Or he might even think she's a gargoyle.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, like, or that's the Michelin Man and I gotta fucking kill him because, you know, I'm preventing World War III.
Yeah.
So like, we have a lot of mentally disabled people just out on the streets, or deranged people, or people basically who shouldn't be in our communities, right? So one of the things that I realized, and I was digging into this stuff, and it's the reason why it's happening in certain cities is a lot of these different prosecutors who believe in the reform laws, they don't want to file charges, or they're slapping, you know, a little thing on the wrist and then say
affects the statistics that they're trying to get, right?
Or they're not filing a lot of charges on maybe misdemeanors or small assaults or whatever, right? So what ends up happening is they just get re-released. And then I get what they're kind of trying to say here, but it sucks because for me, the guys that are behind the reform laws, they didn't do their due diligence, they didn't do their homework. A lot of people want to quote, well, look at Scandinavia, they have a great reform system. And I'm like, great.
Stupid reference shit.
I'm like, let's mimic something where, you know, they have a good rehabilitation program. They have, you know, like a process of after you catch a dude, you throw him through their system. We don't even have that. No. We just say, oh, you know what? We shouldn't criminalize anymore. So let's just like let them loose, right? And then it's like, well, I think it's better to catch them, keep them away from society. If they have mental issues and they have violent tendencies, keep them away while we figure out how to reform, and we can run tests and see what works, what doesn't work. We can bring in people from Scandinavia who understand how to re-educate, bring them back into the community as a safe, you know, functioning member of society. If we can't do that, then why the fuck should we leave them out on the streets to commit more violence? That's what I don't fucking understand.
I don't understand either.
It's like, how is this guy out with violent felonies? If you have 2 violent felonies,
well,
like, where are we drawing the line?
And then the only thing that I can think of is it's a political agenda. So for example, right, you wanted to get voted in. So you're gonna run on reform laws. You're gonna run on the hey, we gotta stop criminalizing because all it does is it locks up the minority communities, which is true, but they don't do their homework. They don't do the actual work to help people. They just give fucking all this shit to pander, right? So
to get the votes.
They're just getting the votes, right? And what they do is basically, now they don't file charges, because if you don't file charges, you can claim that there's not crime going on. There's no crime.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't file a charge and if you don't file that there is a crime and people aren't getting convicted, then your statistics of crime is low. So we feel the crime on the streets, people that walk out there every day, we see all of this shit happening. But then the guys on top can say, look, we had a great fucking year. Yeah. Because look at our statistics. We had no fucking criminals. Great.
They always respond with that fucking same thing.
Right? Yeah. And then what happens? It's like people who don't know, maybe they live in nice little gated communities who don't live in our neighborhoods go, that's awesome, we're doing great, let's vote them in again. And I'm like, this fucking system sucks, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it seems like all the Asian hate or not, whatever, like, we've talked about this a lot, especially on JK. All the stories we cover, where there's an assault, a violent crime happening, guess what we find out? Priors, rap sheet, like crazy.
Yeah.
And it happens to be in these like more liberal cities like LA or New York.
Yeah.
So you can, and especially as people that live there, right? You can't help but to feel like, what the fuck do we have to do as citizens for us to be heard, just to get these dangerous people out the streets? Like, is that so hard to ask for? But I guess it is a very difficult, like,
and also
solution,
especially
right?
with like what seems to be, at least through media, it's specifically targeting people that are like our parents or grandparents or aunties and uncles, you know? That's the part that's like, how do you even stop something that is like, seems like so specific, even though it might not be, because they could have mental illness, or it might be.
Yeah.
It's just,
have they looked into, like, is there a tie of any of this? Like, I know there was some early stuff with the Corona stuff. Like, just ignorant ass people were tying that into violence, but is the rest of this just dog shit?
Also, like, knowing that when you're around like Lunar New Year and stuff, a lot of old Asian people might be carrying like money or cash. That was also potentially a thing. But like, when you see kind of these violent crimes and it's not looking, it doesn't look like, hey, I'm gonna steal your stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just gonna racially, I'm just gonna beat you up like crazy.
You know,
yeah, that's
120 punches.
I don't get it.
It's a little bit confusing because I mean, I honestly believed for a little bit that most of the attackers were mentally unstable homeless people, because it was a lot of that shit. Just like people that would just do random ass shit, have nothing to do all day, nowhere to go, and they just do some crazy shit. Because you see that everywhere. But this fucking guy specifically has a normal ass Instagram account, not private. Yeah, you could just look. He's just he just looks like a regular fucking dude.
Wow. And they just like crossed each other by the door.
Yeah, and he didn't even leave afterwards. He just like hung around, and they arrested him in front of the building.
I don't understand.
But they said, oh, he's got a history of mental like disabilities or a history of something. But I'm like,
that's a weird court thing too, right? Like sometimes you get let off easier that way and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't understand that either. Like, I have empathy for mental illness. Don't get me wrong, but like, if you're out punching motherfuckers,
but
you know, like what?
A guy I know, bro. There was a guy that we went to high school with. This dude is going. He's like, he was a normal guy. He's an Armenian cat. His name was Gev or something. Now he's all over these Instagram accounts called Food's Gone Wild. You ever seen those guys?
Food's Gone Wild.
Where he's like in his car and he's like, let me talk to you, my girl, baby girl. Like, he's trying to holler at girls on Instagram, and like he's
for
not
content.
But he's not the same. Like, he's different. Like, I see him around. Like, I know this dude. Like, we knew this guy. He's a different guy now. However he was in high school, he's a different guy. But this dude is on Instagram blowing up. Everyone loves this fucking dude. But he just filmed himself in his car talking about how he wants to holler at girls. He's like, don't hate me because I'm bald and I'm horny, baby. Like, he says crazy shit, but he's like a fucking star, like, on Instagram.
Yeah.
But if you watch his videos, you're like, something's different. I don't know what it is.
If you knew him from before.
Yeah, like something is off. You know what I mean?
He's about to snap or some shit?
Not that he's about to snap, but it's like talking about the mental illness shit. Like, like it's such a spectrum.
Like he can seem kind of coherent.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's really ticking.
You really don't. You really don't know, right? Like, and he has a normal Instagram account, kind of, you know, and all that shit. But like, he's not violent necessarily.
Sure. Yeah.
Is there a video of him getting in a fight with a guy at the Grove and he pulls a knife on him? Yeah, there is. But that was in like self-defense. But it's so fucking weird though. Like, as far as the mental health thing.
To what Bart was saying too, though, I think this is where you're going with it. It's like we call it mental illness, or you know what I mean. Like, why such a consistent string of like the same type of victim?
Yeah.
Like every week this is happening.
No, for sure.
You're not really seeing it on the news unless you're kind of looking for it, or unless fucking Instagram's algorithm is pushing it to you because you've already seen a lot of this stuff and you're that's part of your community. But like, it's happening every weekend. Like I literally was just scrolling through IG story during the break, and it's like another dude, 31-year-old dude, like just wailed on a kid, like an Asian lady, and then the fucking kid. You see that one? A kid in a baby carriage, 3 years old, and he's like beat the crap out of a kid, a baby.
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah,
and it's like, and yeah, also of Asian descent. So you're kind of like,
Was it a homeless man? Was it like, because most of the videos I saw was like basically dudes that are probably drugged up and homeless.
But why are the victims similar? Why is it always like?
And also,
but they could both be all true.
And
though,
also,
you know?
and also, if it's like, let's say, when are we gonna get to a point where we feel like there might be an Asian hate crime pandemic? So like, let's say, it's 9 out of 10 of the people getting wailed on is Asians, right? Maybe that's not enough. Then is it 99 out of 100? Or is it 9,000 out of 9,000 out of 10,000? 900,000 out of a million? Like, what's the number that we're like, okay, this is too big of a Venn diagram to just go, lots of mental illness, lots of Asians, you know? Like,
well, one thing for sure is during the pandemic and on, senseless violence, just like random acts of
Murders
violence.
are up everywhere. That is true.
Murders, just straight up beating the fuck out of people without any without any monetary gain. Like before, it's like, yeah, grab their wallet, fuck them up. It's just senseless violence has been dramatically up in many major cities. And so that's one. And I think to compound on top of that are the reform laws, because another thing that I studied is in Honolulu. Like, I have friends in the police department there, and it's the same thing, same exact thing. The prosecutor does not want to prosecute. They want to do all this stuff. They have, you know, molesters, touchers, gropers. Their crime isn't that hardcore. Maybe they'll grope tourists or women walking around, right? So it's not hardcore enough for them to go to jail. But what they'll do is they'll catch and release, catch and release. So the cops feel helpless because they catch the guy, but they can't file a charge, or they do a little thing and hold them, and then they gotta let him go. So what ends up happening, I think, psychologically to people that are like this, right, is they feel bolder with their crimes. So at what point, does it have to be after the fact this guy raped someone that finally we could put him away?
Right.
Or like, I think that's the kind of shit that's happening, right? Is like, at what point do we prevent this crime? Like, oh, he's only punched someone. It's cool. Let's let him go. It's not a big deal. And then, he's only stabbed someone. And then what's the next one, right? Oh, he's only killed 3 people. You know, and I think that's the natural progression of allowing people to do something, and then they don't have any consequences, and there's no fear of getting caught. Now they can continue to do whatever they want to because they know that nothing's gonna happen.
I think that's the main, when you look at everything and you just plot it all out in a big graph, you could have some people go, oh, it's because they're all black, or oh, it's because they're all homeless, oh, it's because they're all this. Those are all like incorrect. The one main common denominator is none of those people were afraid of what would happen to them. That's the number one, I feel like, common denominator with all of it, and that stems from laws and consequences that don't exist, that they're not afraid of, and that's all it is. Whatever the fucking thing we fucked up and voted for to make that the case, we need to reverse that shit.
Yeah. And my thing is, I really think it's because of the prosecutor that we have in there. Because we do have people in law enforcement, they're like, dude, we're catching.
They're trying, yeah, they really
catching.
are. They really are.
But we feel helpless because they get released back onto the streets.
Well, yeah, even in the areas like where Barbell is and the brewery, and then we asked the police, like, what can we do about these chop shops and these meth labs that are just here on the street? And they were like, we can't do anything until a certain number of people will complain. And then even at that point, if we get them to move, we're not there to keep them from coming back. So they're just powerless. Like, these cops are like, it's not our law. Like, we didn't vote for this to happen. Like, you guys voted for them to be treated that way, and we just comply. Like, it's it. You can't ask the cops to do anything. You know what I mean?
And even if they do grab them, they can't keep them in jail.
No, they can't do anything.
There was another one where it started before the pandemic, and I used to be super for decriminalizing drugs, right? Because I was, into drugs and all that, and I was like, dude, it sucks. Like, if I get caught with drugs, like, I shouldn't do 10 years. It's weird as a drug user. But then, what ended up happening?
As a partaker.
As a partaker, right?
As an enthusiast.
I was like, well, this is what I started considering. And I talked to my buddy who's a cop too. He was like, well, look at, like, if drug is criminalized, right? What we can do is, if this guy's high off his balls, or if he's jonesing for more, right? What happens when someone wants crack? And I'm like, if they don't have money, they'll break into homes, because that's what me and my buddies did, or whoever, right? And then he's like, exactly. So this is crime prevention. So if it's criminalized, we don't have to slap on a crazy, 10-year fine or sentence on them. We could hold them in the cell, let them sober up, and then at least he's not a threat to society for those days. He goes, if I can't criminalize this shit, they're out onto the streets, and then it increases the crime. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even see it that way, but it is first-hand account true. My friends, when they ran out of money for drugs, they'll start breaking into homes. They start purse snatching. They start doing all those things, right? Yeah. So then we do have a huge drug problem. And then so I think it's the same thing with the reform laws. It comes from a good place where it's like, yeah, you shouldn't criminalize laws because, you don't want to make somebody a criminal for smoking a joint. But at the same time, how are you going to create a system to support these guys to get off? And then maybe the government can find a method where these guys don't go out and break into homes because they need more drugs or whatever. Right. We just need a system of better rehabilitation. Yeah. And unless that's in, right now the best system we do have is maybe keeping them away, safe from, threatening people on the streets.
That's what scares me, is that people on the extreme left are saying like, oh, don't put them in jail, don't criminalize them, don't do any of that. Use this other unknown magic of rehabilitation that does not yet exist.
Yeah.
We don't have that yet. So why are you stopping doing this when we don't have that imaginary solution?
I just want to know if the people that are voting for this stuff actually live amongst the poor.
I don't think they do.
No.
Because I highly believe, like, all these people that are like voting for it, they're like maybe rich white guilt people that live in gated communities, and they don't live amongst the people that that are dealing with them.
They for sure probably don't see it.
Well, now they're actually getting victimized too, with all these robberies in Beverly Hills and Bel Air and all that shit. So I don't know.
Did you see that Seth Rogen shit about?
Oh my God, fucking Seth Rogen! Get the fuck out of here, man!
I never had my car broken.
He said that's what it's like living in the city.
Yeah, it's like it's a part of living in a city.
So we should just be okay with it. I got it.
I mean, I'm telling you, in Tokyo is way more populated, but shit, you don't have cars broken into left and right.